A promise, ladies and gentlemen. How many promises have you seen politicians break? How many promises have you seen the government break? Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are brave enough, I am going to take you on a journey to explain to you what this is, what the Federal Reserve note is, and why you should get rid of it and get real stuff with it instead of holding on to it. Now, having said that, I'm not a financial advisor. I am not a trained economist, but that's what I think is good about what I'm doing here. It's that I'm just an average guy telling you in average guy terms, in layman terms, why this is no good. And you should get rid of it and get real stuff. My opinion, so let's get started. I've already read through this, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll go through the important parts. And this is from Investopedia. And they ask, what is the Federal Reserve Note? Great question. Have any of you ever asked yourselves, what is the Federal Reserve Note? Not many people do. The Federal Reserve Note is a term used to describe the paper demand liabilities of the Federal Reserve. What in the world does that mean? The paper demand liabilities of the Federal Reserve. What is a liability? That's what we have to ask. And why is the Federal Reserve Note a liability, a paper liability of the Federal Reserve? Now, a liability is something a person or company owes, usually a sum of money. Liabilities are settled over time through the transfer of economic benefits, including money, goods, or services. So if this is a liability and it's not money or a good or a service, what is it? That's the question that we need to be asking ourselves. They say here that the Federal Reserve Note is often confused with the US dollar, the official unit of account of the United States. You see, it cannot be the US dollar, because if this is a liability of the Federal Reserve, a private institution, then it cannot belong to the United States government, i.e., or to the United States people. That's why this doesn't even belong to you. You worked for it. They paid you in this for your labor, but it doesn't even belong to you. It is a liability of the Federal Reserve, and it's not even a US dollar, although we call it dollars. Because if it was a US dollar, it means that it would belong to the US government, i.e. the people, and it does not. So the key takeaways from this is the Federal Reserve Notes are the paper currency circulating in the United States, right? They're the paper currency. That's all they are, paper. Okay, these are commonly known as dollar bills, but we all know that they are not US dollar bills. They are liabilities that belong to the Federal Reserve. The US Treasury prints Federal Reserve notes which are backed by the US government. But what are they really backed by, ladies and gentlemen? And the US Treasury prints them with the permission of the Federal Reserve. Now they say here, understanding the Federal Reserve Note. You see, ladies and gentlemen, all of these questions that we have, they are answered. All you have to do is look for them. The Federal Reserve Notes were first issued after the creation of the Federal Reserve System in 1913. And before 1971, each Federal Reserve Note was backed by a legally specified amount of gold held at the U.S. Treasury. However, private citizens were not allowed to redeem notes for gold dollars. Because these notes held legal tender status and represented actual dollars, they were commonly referred to as dollar bills, as they circulated through the economy. So you see, they are no longer dollar bills because they are not backed by the money of the people. They are not backed by the gold that they used to be backed by, which is the money of the people, if the gold is still there. But I digress. However, under President Nixon, the gold standard was officially abandoned. August 15th, 1971. We all know that. Creating a full fiat currency. And what is a fiat currency, ladies and gentlemen? Let's visit that really quick. A fiat currency is a legal currency that is not backed by physical commodities, nor does the material it is made from have significant value. How much value does this paper have? It's got the value of what the paper costs and the ink cost to put on it and the labor that it costs to make it, which I believe today is for a $100 US Federal Reserve note, something like 14 cents or 12 cents, something like that. The currency's stated value exists because of government decree. What does the word decree mean? Let's go down this rabbit hole. Decree. A decree is a legal proclamation. Legal, not lawful. Usually issued by a head of state, according to certain procedures. It has the force of law. You understand what they're saying here? It has the force of law. So they made the Federal Reserve note legal tender. So under the force of law, you have to use it to pay public debt, and you can use it to pay private debt if you like. The particular term used for this concept may vary from country to country. The executive orders by the President of the United States, for example, are decrees. Are executive orders law? Now let's go ahead and continue where we left off. However, under President Nixon, the gold standard was officially abandoned, creating a full fiat currency, where the Federal Reserve notes themselves are the sole circulating legal tender, along with small base metal coins. Federal Reserve notes are no longer backed by assets such as gold. Instead, Federal Reserve notes are supported solely by the government's declaration decree. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, in the United States. That's all that a government has to say, and boom, there you go. We have a legal currency, which is not lawful, but it's legal because it was done by decree by the executive powers of the United States of America, which executive orders are not laws either. Are you starting to get the point, ladies and gentlemen, that we live in an upside-down world? And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Today, Federal Reserve notes circulate as money throughout the U.S. Well, they just told us that it's not real money. And the rest of the world, wherever dollar-denominated transactions take place, these notes are still commonly referred to as dollars, which they are not dollars. They are notes, a debt instrument, which was previously a legally defined quantity of gold or silver, but is now simply the official unit of account for U.S. legal tender, including Federal Reserve notes. So they're much pretty telling you so far is that these things are worth nothing. They're worth only the paper that the ink is printed on. The U.S. Treasury prints the Federal Reserve notes at the instruction of the Board of Governors and the 12 Federal Reserve member banks. These banks also act as the clearinghouse for local banks that need to increase or reduce their supply of cash on hand. Once new Federal Reserve notes are issued, they become a liability of the Federal Reserve, which can be redeemed by bearers on demand for different Federal Reserve notes. So pretty much what they're saying is that you can turn in a bank can turn in a Federal Reserve note, right, to the Federal Reserve. But the only thing that they'll get in return is other Federal Reserve notes, either of the same amount or of different amounts equaling the same nominal value that they turn in. That's it. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. What is the difference between a Federal Reserve note and a United States note? A United States note was an earlier form of paper money in the United States from 1862 to 1971, which was backed and redeemable for physical silver and gold. So that was actual currency. Currency is something that is backed by something of value. So for example, let's say that we are still on a gold-backed currency, and this is not a gold coin, but make believe it's a gold coin. Let's say we were still in a gold-backed currency, and the Treasury, not the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is a privately owned institution. Who owns it? Shareholders. Who are the shareholders? The big banks. Right? That is who the Federal Reserve works for. They work for the big banks, not you and me, ladies and gentlemen. So for example, let's say that we were still in a gold-backed system and the Treasury held 8,354 tons of gold. We can go ahead and take our dollars, right, because they would be actual dollars, and trade them in for this physical commodity. We would actually be able to trade it in for this money because the currency, right, the currency at that point, if we were dealing with money, if we were dealing with real money, this would be the currency, right, that this money backed up. So you can go ahead and actually trade this currency that represents this real money back for that real money and hold it in your hands. But we can no longer do that because we don't have a currency. We have a fiat currency. Something that has no value of it whatsoever. The only value that it has is because by decree, the government has said you have to use this to pay your taxes and to pay public debt. So going on, a U.S. note was an earlier form of paper money in the U.S. from 1862 to 1971, which was backed and redeemable for physical silver or gold. Between 1933 and 71, both United States notes and Federal Reserve notes were considered legal tender. Is a Federal Reserve note a promissory note? Technically, yes. A Federal Reserve note is a promissory note that does not pay any interest. All right, so whenever you own one of these, all right, whenever you own one of these, it's your liability because it doesn't pay any interest. A note, a debt, is a liability. So this is a liability, ladies and gentlemen. Why is this a liability? It doesn't pay interest, but it works in reverse. The interest is charged to you through inflation. So the longer that you hold these, the less value that it has, the less purchasing power that it has, and the less that you can buy with it when you eventually use it. That is why I've often said I'd rather use my fiat currency to get the stuff that I know I'm going to need now instead of leaving it in the bank or under a mattress somewhere so that it can lose more value over time, because this is a liability, ladies and gentlemen. Let me ask you a question. Let's say that you put these two things in a shed, right? And your shed caught on fire. And this melted down. And this burnt up. This is not going to disappear. This is just going to be melted down. You can still go ahead and trade this for the nominal value of the metal that is in here, even in its melted form. This will not disappear. This will. Will you be able to take your ashes into a bank and say, yes, this used to be $100 bill, but it burned down in its ashes? What are they going to give you for that? Absolutely nothing. This is a liability. This is real money. Another question that I'll have from you. Let's say, for example, let's just make believe that this is a 1 ounce gold coin. And let's say that your grandparents, that they went ahead and buried a can in the backyard 100 years ago. And in that can, there was a 1 ounce gold coin. And there was, I don't have a $20 bill here, but there was a $20 bill. Because you see, 100 years ago, a 1 ounce gold coin was valued at $20.67, right? But let's say that they left you a $20 bill and a gold coin in a can. And they buried it in the backyard and they left instructions to your parents. Hey, give this to Johnny when he turns 18. And you go ahead and you dig that up and you open the can and you find your gold coin, a 1 ounce gold coin and a $20 bill. Which one would you be more excited over? Would you be more excited over the $20 bill or the 1 ounce gold coin? I know which one I'd be more excited over, because today I can take this 1 ounce gold coin and go trade it in for $1,800 or $1,700, whatever it may be. But that $20 bill is going to get you $20 worth of stuff, where this is going to get you $1,700 worth of stuff, or $1,800, whatever it may be. Do you understand how it is that you get ripped off? Inflation over time steals your labor, it steals your time, it steals your wealth and your purchasing power. Whereas if real money maintains its purchasing power over time. I'm sorry that I have to keep going back, but I have to tell you my thoughts when they come. If not, I forget. Is a Federal Reserve note a promissory note? Technically, yes, a Federal Reserve note is a promissory note that does not pay any interest. It is defined as such because it states that this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, in indicating a promise for the government and private citizens to accept and honor the notes as legal tender. So it is a promise that you're going to be able to trade this in for something else. Every time you get paid and you get that paycheck direct deposited into your account, or somebody gives you cash for a job that you did, all you are receiving is a promise that you will be able to exchange this for something of real value. A promise, ladies and gentlemen. How many promises have you seen politicians break? How many promises have you seen the government break? And this is very important. This seems very simple question right here, but it's very important. Can I get money directly from the Federal Reserve? First of all, before I even read this, no, you can't, because the Federal Reserve does not deal with money. They deal with fiat currency. And they say no, Money is only issued through the U.S. banking system, which receives its money from the Federal Reserve. Right there, that's wrong. They don't receive money from the Federal Reserve. They receive fiat currency notes. And listen to this. This is an important part. Individuals cannot, by law, have accounts at the Federal Reserve. Why can't individuals, by law, have an account in the Federal Reserve? Because if you have an account in a bank, then you are a shareholder of that bank. So for example, let's say that I have $10,000 in my bank, right? And that bank goes bankrupt. And then the FDIC takes over the management of that bank. And then they have to do a bail-in where it is that they take either all or a portion of the deposits to save that institution. Then whatever they took from you, they will replace with shares of that bank. Right? So let's say that they said, okay, we're going to give you all a 50% haircut. So my $10,000 turned to $5,000. And they said, well, the 50% haircut that we're giving you, we're going to go ahead and transfer that over to you in the form of shares to that banking institution. So now I've got $5,000 in fiat currency in that bank, and I've got $5,000 worth of shares. So when you have money deposited in a bank, in a way, you own a little bit of that bank. You don't have any say on how they run it, but in a way you own it, because if they ever go bankrupt and the FDIC comes in, they're going to go ahead and replace whatever money they gave you, they took from you, with shares, right? So here it says individuals cannot by law have accounts at the Federal Reserve. Why is that? Because the Federal Reserve does not deal with money. And we cannot be shareholders of the Federal Reserve. Why? Because it is a private institution, ladies and gentlemen. It is a private institution that is there for its shareholders. Who are their shareholders? The big major banks. That is who the Federal Reserve is there to assist. It's the big major banks, not you and me. They could care less about you or my purchasing power. They could care less, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you got something out of this. You know, I was thinking before I did this video, I was like, why am I going to waste my time? I bet you almost no one will watch this video. But you know what? I changed my mind on that notion. Even if one of you or two of you get something out of this video and understand what I'm telling you, that this is garbage. This is what people base their lives on. It's garbage. The only reason we need to use it is because someone at Capitol Hill, at the White House, wherever you want to call it, someone said, yeah, let's go ahead and make this legal tender and make the people use it, even though it has absolutely no value whatsoever. And even though what we're doing is we're allowing them to get paid with promissory notes instead of getting paid with real money. Why? So that it can allow us to print as many of these as we want, therefore reducing the purchasing power of all of the actual bills that the people who earn them already have, so that they can buy less and we can spend more, i.e. we the government. That's what the dollar is. It is a debt note that was created in order to steal your wealth without your permission. Having said that, have a great day. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Prepare, ladies and gentlemen. That's all that you can do is prepare. Am I saying get rid of all your dollar bills? No, I still have some dollar bills. Why? Because we have no choice but to use it. And when the system goes down, dollar bills or U.S. Federal Reserve notes, whatever you want to call it, they're still going to be good for a little bit. Why? Because nobody will watch this video. Because nobody will wake up. Or maybe not nobody, but the majority of people will not wake up. The majority of people won't watch this video. Why? Because they are living in a normalcy biased world induced by either self-ignorance that they induced on themselves, or by ignorance from the system that the government has created to teach people what money is. And that is, they don't teach people what money is. They just tell you to go to work, make money, even though it's not real money, so that you can pay your taxes.